welcome back to another video. Today's video has been requested by you a few times, so today I thought I would just sit down and talk to you about how I deal with anxiety. I do want to mention first and foremost that I am not a professional. I don't know. This is just my experience, and it's also my experience with having fibromyalgia. I didn't really script this or make a list or anything. I've just been thinking about it, and I just want it to be kind of natural, like a natural chat about the topic. But I feel like the first thing that I would always suggest to somebody when dealing with anxiety is if it's quite severe, if it hinders your ability to live a normal life or as normal as possible, if it makes you not want to go outside, if it gives you a lot of problems, then it is really important that you seek professional help. That maybe if you can afford it, go to a therapist. I don't know how it is where you live, if it's very expensive, if it's not, but try and get help. I will say that I did therapy for 6 years. I've done it for longer, but that was like the biggest chunk of my life. I started when I was 20 and I finished this year, and it really helped me. And I did psychoanalysis, psychotherapy, which was really, really good for me. Don't be ashamed to seek help if that is something that you need, because I was definitely at that point when I was in my 20s where I couldn't do things anymore because of the anxiety. So it's okay to get help, and it'll help you become a person that you're happier with. And isn't that what we're all trying to do here? And there's a weird little mosquito flying around me. If you want to know like my history with anxiety and just like all of that, I've done a video just sharing that story specifically, so you can go and check that one out. There's also a few tips at the end, so it'll be linked somewhere. I have this weird energy today because I'm going to Comic-Con tomorrow and I'm so excited, but also I need to like take it easy today so that I have energy tomorrow to like do the things that I want to do at Comic-Con. So like I'm trying to reel it in, but also I'm bursting with like excitement. So the next top tip that I have for you is along the lines of a therapist. Maybe if you can't afford it, or if you feel like it's not that serious, it's just you want to vent, you want to talk to somebody, air out your thoughts. It's really helpful to do that. So I find that, you know, talking to my partner about how I'm feeling or what I'm going through, listening to his side of how, you know, the illness is affecting him, because obviously it affects both of us. So it affects our relationship, it affects every aspect of our lives. So it's important that we discuss what we're going through, and we discuss like stuff that's happening. So if I'm having a better time, then maybe there's less to discuss. But if I'm going through a lot of flare-ups like I've been lately, it's important for us to check in on each other to know like how the other one's doing, how the other one's feeling. And it's really good to have somebody who's open to talk about their mental health as well, because it makes you more comfortable to talk about your own. If you don't have a partner, you can also talk to a friend. I have at least 2 friends that I talk to mostly when it's like anxiety stuff. One of which I've been friends with for about 8-9 years. She lives across in the States actually. We've been through a lot with each other's lives, and like we've seen the other person grow. So like she is somebody that I can talk to about what I'm going through, is somebody that I can open up to, is somebody that I can send like rant texts to about like what's going on with my family or what I'm going through, and she will always know what to say. She always helps me out. And I also have another friend who lives close by. He's actually moving away now, but he also is somebody that I can talk to. I've known him for about 5 or 6 years. We went to dance school together, and yeah, we've been through a lot of stuff in our lives like at the same time, and we really like bonded over our childhood traumas. So that was cool. And it's somebody that I can also always send a text to, and they'll get back to me whenever they can. And it's like, it's nice to have those people in your life, you know, even if they're not there physically, they're always present in your life, like somehow. Try to reach out to like maybe a family member. It's always nice to reach out to people who have been through similar things, because they'll know how you feel, or a fraction of how you feel. They'll be able to empathize more. Try to reach out to somebody who is empathetic and who might be more open to listening to your problems. I find that there's also a lot of online groups that you can talk to. If you reach out to anyone in the community, they'll always be really kind and really helpful. So I've had situations where I felt like I had no one to talk to, and I've reached out to other members of the community, and they've really helped me through, and they've really like been there for me. So it's really a matter of reaching out and trying. And I know it sounds really silly, but the truth is, like, you're not alone. Like, all of us are going through really similar things, or even if we don't have like an estranged family member, we'll have other situations that we've been through. And I feel like with chronic illness, that experience really makes us a lot more empathetic, and we will empathize with whatever you're going through, even if we've not gone through that. And if you don't know any online groups, or if you don't know like where to start with that, you can reach out to me and I will help you find a group that works for you. It took me a while to find people in the community that I like connected with and that I felt were my friends, and to create those friendships. I feel like a lot of times with our anxiety, specifically with fibromyalgia, we will have anxiety that isn't related to anything. It's literally just our brain kind of, what's the word when the wires are, what's that term? I can only think of it in Portuguese. Sorry, brain fog. You know, like when you plug something in and it doesn't work. What do you call it? Short circuit. That was hard. Okay. Yeah. So sometimes we'll have depression feelings or anxiety feelings, like symptoms like that, where you'll feel like this overwhelming sadness or this kind of overwhelming anxiety, and you can't pinpoint where it comes from. You're kind of like, but why? There's nothing going on that makes me feel anxious. Sometimes that happens to me as well, and I always like takes me a while, and then I'm like, wait a minute. And I've realized now that a lot of times it's just, you know how other symptoms of your fibro like flare up, like you'll just not feel your arm for a day, and that goes, and then it goes away, and it's just, you're like, okay, that's a thing now. Or your feet will be numb or whatever, like, or your knee will just hurt really badly that day and then it goes away. Things like that we have like really weird symptoms that come and go. That's my theory of what happens with my depression and with my anxiety. Obviously there's anxiety and depressive feelings towards the illness and towards like the lifestyle that it's forced me to have, and like the grieving of your old life and all of that. But I mean, sometimes I just wake up and I feel so sad, I don't know what to do. And I know now that it's because of fibro just short-circuiting my brain. It's just that symptom is coming out today. And if you think about it, fibro is a malfunction of our central nervous system, and our depression and anxiety is really intricately connected with our central nervous system. So it makes sense that if our central nervous system doesn't work properly, that it would give us those symptoms as well as all the other symptoms that we get, you know, in our nerves and etc. So don't worry about it. If you feel like one day you just wake up and you're super sad and then 4 days later you feel fine again, that's just fibro being I don't want to say a bad word, but that's just fibro being fibro. So the first few times that this happened, I thought that there was something wrong, like that I just felt really depressed about stuff, and it really had me grasping at straws, like trying to find why I was feeling depressed or why I was feeling anxious. And now I've realized that it's just my stupid brain. That really helps me because I know that even though I feel like it's a waste of a week and that I can't do anything, I know that it's gonna go away. It's nothing that I've done wrong. It's nothing wrong with me. It's just short circuits. Just take time to myself and do what I feel is going to like nourish my soul, and just take self-care time, and yeah, I just wait for it to go away. When it's with anxiety, it's worse because anxiety gives me a lot of pain. Sometimes I can't figure it out straight away and I'll have like anxiety attacks and stuff, and then after I'll have like a really bad pain flare, which happened last week actually, so that was fun. Talking to people, reaching out, understanding that a lot of times it's just your brain short-circuiting. Another thing that I feel is really important for dealing with anxiety, and this is like more generalized, not just specifically for fibro, I feel like something that's really important to understand your anxiety and to deal with it is figuring out and trying to pinpoint where it comes from. So where does your anxiety stem from? What makes you anxious? And why does that thing make you anxious? For example, if you feel anxiety towards driving, right? So you understand that driving gives you anxiety. Why does driving give you that reaction? And finding out in your past or in your childhood or whatever in your experiences, what made you anxious towards driving can really make you understand if it's a silly thing, if it's a justifiable thing, and it really can make you see a different perspective of that situation. I found that with seeing why certain things made me anxious, it kind of like made me not anxious anymore about those things, because I understand that that's where it came from. And now it's not this weird, mysterious monster anymore. It's just something from my childhood that slightly traumatized me. And that made me, turn into anxiety later with other experiences piling on. And if you deconstruct that and you get to the core, you realize that it's just like this tiny thing, and you can just like chuck it out, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm not stressed out about that anymore. And I know this is like sounds really simple when you say it like that. It's a really long process, and it's really painful process too, because it can be really painful to revisit those memories and those things that make you really anxious. But I feel like finding out where it comes from and why, and where, like, what in your childhood, what in your life has made you anxious towards certain things and has made you have that reaction towards certain things that is now bothering your life. I feel like that's really important, because if you don't figure that out, it's just going to keep spiraling and snowballing into something a lot bigger, to a point where you won't be able to deal with it and handle it anymore. And a lot of us deal with anxiety by avoiding it, and by just going around it and being like, okay, so this makes me anxious, so I'm not gonna do it. And that's really unhealthy and a really bad way to live our lives, because anxiety is a normal reaction of our body, just like fear, just like love, like excitedness, happiness. All these feelings that we have, all emotions, are natural, and it's a way of our body to communicate with us and say, like, this is good, this is bad, I feel scared, I feel anger, whatever. All of these feelings are important to go through. And anxiety is not something that we want to eliminate altogether. It's just something that we want to understand better. And we want to only have anxiety when it's justifiable. If you have a bad experience at a concert with a crowd, next time you go to a concert, you might feel anxious being in a crowd, because that's just gone wrong before. But it's important for you to understand that that's just a warning that your body is giving you. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It just means that your body recognizes a similar situation in the past that has caused it harm. Now it's up to you to logically think, okay, am I in danger, or is this just a warning, and should I just be on my toes in case this does happen again, but otherwise enjoy myself? So it may happen again, but it probably won't. And if it doesn't, you can tell your body, like, okay, thanks for warning me, but turned out we didn't need that warning. Everything was fine. And that's kind of the process that you go through with therapy. And that's something that you can do on your own, is kind of think about situations that have made you anxious and where you feel anxious, and then calmly, on your own time, think back to it and like try to understand this kind of thing that your body is trying to tell you. And it's really hard sometimes, and sometimes it's impossible, but you still have to try. It's really hard at the beginning, and it's really painful at the beginning to really think about those things, but then it gets easier, and then it's just like any other skill. With practice, you get better at it. I feel like if you don't have anyone that you can talk to, or if it's something that's really personal or difficult to discuss with other people, you can also write a journal. You can type it out on the computer and then delete it afterwards. Write a letter, I don't know, whatever floats your boat. But I find that sometimes some things that I don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about with anyone, but make me anxious or worry me, I find that writing those down in a journal can be really helpful, because it helps you process those things, allow your brain to go all the way through with that train of thought. And sometimes you come to really good conclusions, and sometimes you realize like how stupid that is. Sometimes you're like, okay, I understand now why this makes me feel anxious. And it really feels good to like just put it out. It can be really cathartic to do that. And another way that you can do that is talking to yourself. And I know that sounds crazy, but I do this a lot, like especially because I'm home alone all day. So sometimes I just talk to myself. I talk to myself inside my head. If I just let that conversation flow, I come to really interesting conclusions. It really helps me kind of understand where a feeling is coming from, or what is going on with me. So I find that having that conversation in your head with yourself and being really honest and allowing that conversation to flow and the thoughts to flow can be really helpful, because even though it's a little bit scary and it feels a little bit like you're letting go, that is good, because if you keep trying to hold on to all of these things, that's what makes you feel anxious in the first place. So letting things go and allowing yourself to live and to experience things can be really helpful. People who have anxiety are often overthinkers. We think about things a lot. We're perfectionists. We want everything to be perfect, and we don't know how to do that because nothing's perfect. So we are constantly like in this weird thing of trying to be perfect and trying to accept that we're not perfect and trying to do our best but feeling like our best is never enough and like overthinking. And I know because I go through this all the time as well. Like this is how I feel too. So trying to accept those things and trying to like think less and do more. I'm not suggesting that you don't think things through before you do them, but sometimes just go for it. But it's really important to like balance that out. And it's really scary at the beginning. And I talked about this in my video where I talk about anxiety and like my process. It's really hard at first. And at first when I started doing things, like it took me weeks of planning, of thinking it through, of like coming up with exit strategies and all of this. And it took me weeks to like build up the courage to do it. And the whole time I was terrified. But then slowly, it just takes a little bit less time for you to build up that courage to do it. And now I can do some things and I can just go and do them. And I can just buy a ticket to do that thing because I want to do it. And I don't think about whether or not it's a good idea or not. Like I know I want to do that thing and I know it's going to make me happy. So I'm going to go and do it. Find a balance of doing and thinking, because it's important to think things through, but it's also important to actually go through with them and do them. Because if you don't do anything and if you never leave the thinking stage, you're never going to get to the next stage in life. Because trust me, once you do that one thing, that obstacle that you have right now, there's going to be more. Like that's life. Life is constantly throwing obstacles at you and you have to just get on with it. But the thing is, as you start jumping over the obstacles and like the hurdles that life throws at you, you start being a little bit more confident and you start understanding how to get over the obstacles a little bit better. And you just practice and you get better at it. And sometimes you fall and sometimes you can't get up straight away and it takes a while. And it takes a while for you to figure that out, that one specific obstacle. And others are easier and others are harder, and it's just everybody else is going through that too. If you think that somebody else is really good at life, they're probably just better at it, at like faking that they know what they're doing than you do. Because nobody really knows what they're doing. We're all just kind of like letting it flow and figuring out as we go along. Especially when we're at the initial stages of our anxiety journey and like dealing with that, we find that other people who are doing better than us are like so far ahead of us and they're superior to us. And the thing is, you might think of me like because I've gone over maybe the hurdle that you're trying to get over right now. So you may think that I know what I'm doing, but just because I got over that one hurdle doesn't mean I'm better than you or that I know what I'm doing more. It just means that I got over that one hurdle. Like that's all it means. And I'm now struggling with my next hurdle. And you might think that I have it all together, but like I have nightmares all the time about things that stress me out. Other ways that I feel are good to handle anxiety, having good hobbies that really take your mind off of things. If you can, having a pet also really helps because it forces you to have a routine. It forces you to think of somebody else's needs, which can really take you away from your anxiety and give you some kind of like structure to your life, which is really good. Other things that help for me, like I was saying, hobbies, sewing, so I like making things. I have my own Etsy store where I sell those things that I make. So I'll make book sleeves and I can cross stitch and I make, bookmarks and things like that and little designs. I really like crafting. I just like making things and creating stuff. Reading, I really like reading, so I read a lot of books. I interact with the book community, talk about what we think about books and stuff, so that's something that I also have an interest in, and that can really take me away from my problems and my anxieties, and it can also help you figure stuff out, because reading is a really good way to like think about things without thinking about things, if you know what I mean. Like experiencing somebody else's problems and somebody else's challenges can really help you put your challenges into perspective. I think the really important thing with the hobby is something that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your illness or the reasons why you are anxious. Making it about you. It's something that you like, and it doesn't matter if other people don't understand, and it doesn't matter if other people frown upon it or think that it's weird or whatever. Let them. It's for you, it's not for them. It's very important to sometimes sometimes, stay away from it and to sometimes not think about it. And sometimes you have to think about it because you have to make appointments and you have to go and do it. But other times you can just go and do something else and think about something else and enjoy something else. I'm sorry if this video is like a million minutes long, but something else that I really enjoy doing, which helps me cope with anxiety, which isn't very healthy, but it just helps me, is cleaning and tidying and organizing. And a lot of times it makes my back hurt and it just gives me a lot of pain afterwards. But it's something that really gives me the sense of control of, like, it helps me fight that overwhelming feeling like I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing and like I don't know what to do about my life. And my anxiety comes from a lot of childhood trauma, and I don't want to say a lot, but like everybody has their stuff, and just because my stuff may not be as dramatic as other people's stuff doesn't make it less valid. So the same goes to you. I consider that I had childhood trauma. There were things that my parents did or didn't do or said or didn't say that really caused me a lot of pain and that really changed who I was. So I consider that trauma, deal with it. I don't know why I got so sassy all of a sudden. But anyway, so mine comes from a lot of childhood stuff and from this kind of relentless energy that I have of like I've never really satisfied. Like I always want, I don't want to say more things because it's not about things. Like I always want to know more and to be doing more. And this kind of relentless feeling like I'm never enough and like I'm never doing enough. But at the same time, I'm never resting enough. Like I don't know how to explain it. And I feel like I am really quite good at either just resting and like doing nothing and being like, I'm taking time off, doing my thing, whatever, and I can switch things off. Or if I'm switched on, then I'm 100% switched on and I am super focused on what I'm doing and I'm like really invested in all my projects. I don't really have an in-between, and I don't have an in-between for a lot of things, and it's a really big problem. Having fibromyalgia is literally all about balance. So it's been a really big process for me to try to find balance. I feel like I'm better at it, but mostly I've had to force myself to do that, and like I've given myself a schedule which basically is like so extra and so intense. Like I gave myself a schedule where I have to rest a few hours a day between everything else that I'm doing. So that forces me to stop and to chill and to not overdo things. I feel like that's how I kind of deal with it, how I handle it. I'm not sitting here and trying to say that I'm perfect at it and that I'm really good. This is just stuff that's worked for me and that's helped me. I hope this wasn't too rambly and weird and that it helps. If it does, please let me know because I would really like to know that I helped you. That is it. That's all I have to say. That's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave it a like and a comment and consider subscribing to my channel. If you have not done that already, it would mean so much to me. You can also consider becoming a member on Patreon. It would help me a lot, and you can also shop my Etsy store if there's anything that you like. It also would help me keep making videos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!